Hello and welcome to Pro Baseball World Tour, right here on the RGC Multimedia YouTube channel. This is Rick Crabb, and joined as always by Mr. Eric Marenbach. Eric, how was your Labor Day weekend? How did that go for you, sir?
Awesome Labor Day weekend, an extra day of rest, more youth baseball to watch live. Can't get any better than that.
No, I agree. And speaking of youth baseball, I'm sure you want to send a shout out to your Franklin Square squad who was playing in a tournament last time we spoke. And what was the result of that, Eric?
We had the Hitmen winning a tournament last weekend, and a little bit of a tease. We also won a tournament this weekend as well. It was a Labor Day holiday tournament kind of thing.
There we go. All right. Well, congratulations to them. And as I had mentioned at the end of the last episode, it sounded like you were giving them good luck, and I thought you would continue to do so. And so far, it looks like you've done that. So, good job, Franklin Square.
It actually seems like it. As a matter of fact, these tournaments are outside of quote-unquote league play.
Mm-hmm.
The manager of the team, guy by the name of Frankie Carbone, he actually wants me to come be on the coaching staff for their actual league games, which start on September 19th.
Oh, very nice.
So it's going to be an honorary coach thing, and a couple of people that I brought with me as special guests who are also friends of mine from the Yankee Stadium bleachers.
Oh, nice.
They also got invited back also to be honorary coaches as well.
There we go.
So, kind of cool.
Yeah, it sounds very cool. And sounds like Franklin Square's building up a competitive edge by doing that. So good for you. Good luck in the tournament. Good and continued success. All right. Well,
yeah, thanks.
Sure thing. All right. Well, we have a few news items that broke out over the past week. And we'll start off in North America as we always do. Start off, unfortunately, we lost two legends in Major League Baseball, Eric. It looks like he had the famous pitcher Tom Seaver. Most people know him from his time with the Mets and the Cincinnati Reds, as well as Hall of Fame outfielder Lou Brock, also passing away. I'm sure I know you're in the New York area, even though I know you follow the Yankees more than the Mets, but I'm sure you have some memories about Mr. Seaver. Anything you'd like to share about him? Or?
Well, like I said, I'm more of the Yankee fan. I do watch a lot of Met baseball, especially now living about 5 minutes from Citi Field. Did not really have that much interaction with Seaver, but he was one of the icons in Met baseball history, pitching-wise.
Right, I've even heard like a few talk shows basically saying, like on a local talk station here, he interviewed an analyst for the Mets because they had played the Orioles earlier in the week, and they were asking about Mr. Seaver, and then basically he had the nickname of the franchise, and a lot of people regard him and possibly maybe Gary Carter under him as the two greatest players in the history of the Mets franchise. So, I mean, I think the only time I had the pleasure of seeing Seaver live in person, I think he had played. Did he play for the Angels or the White Sox? It was either one of those two teams. I think
he finished off with the White Sox, actually.
Right. It might have been then, because it was in the early '80s. I went to a game where he pitched against the Orioles at Memorial Stadium. I remember it was like a NBC game of the week. Although it was blacked out in our area, it was televised in other cities. And I remember he pitched well in that game, although I think there was a disputed call about. It looked as though an Oriole may have hit a home run down the left field line, but the umpire disagreed, and I think Mr. Earl Weaver came out in that game and disagreed, as he liked to do with a lot of calls back in the day. But that was kind of interesting. But again,
I'll tell you what, I would actually love it if replay were alive and well back then, and or Weaver had a chance to be involved in the replay era.
Oh wow, that would be funny.
Could coulda, woulda, shoulda been overturned or whatever.
Right. Although he irked some of those umpires so much, they would probably still say, "Oh, it wasn't conclusive enough," or "Oh, sorry," just to stick it to him, because he stuck it back to them. Good Lord. I don't know.
Absolutely.
And it's like, I don't know how or where this clip came from. I'm guessing it came from like a local TV news station, but I'll send you a link to it. You've probably seen it already, where he argued with an umpire at the game against the Tigers, and he basically, a lot of radio stations in the area played it and censored it, with a lot of bleeps, but it needed a lot of bleeps. Basically, he told the umpire, he said, the only reason you come here is to screw us, He said that repeatedly, and it's funny as hell. But
yeah, Weaver was around before the cable television, non-censorship, satellite radio era, so he was definitely one of the colorful ones.
Oh yeah, no doubt. But again, with Mr. Seaver, condolences to his family and his fans in Queens and in Cincinnati and everywhere else. So, and another player, unfortunately, that left us was Mr. Lou Brock from the Cardinals. Few interesting facts about him that I read about. He was the first player to actually have an award named after him while he was still an active player. He basically stole so many bases that the National League named the base stealing title after him. And the record, and he actually held records throughout the major leagues until they were broken by Rickey Henderson. So, but what were your, now, it's interesting with you, like I know, like I said, I know you follow the Yankees, but you have city teams in both leagues. Do you have any memories about Lou Brock or the Cardinals themselves? I know you see some Mets baseball, but
I do remember seeing Brock in some of the earlier days of spring training. With every team, you'd always have a lot of the veterans, retired players come down to be honorary instructors. Lou and Bob Gibson are two of the more famous ones in Cardinal history that come down to Jupiter, and before that, St. Petersburg, when the Cardinals were over there in Grapefruit League spring training. It was always an honor to see guys like Brock, Gibson, Ozzie Smith, and the rest of those guys from the late 60s, early 70s championship days.
I bet. Yeah, and I remember he was still being voted in All-Star games like in the 70s, I think he made it. When he finished around 79, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was still highly regarded. But
it was either the late 70s or early 80s.
Yeah, and unfortunately here in Baltimore, where we were strictly American League, nothing else, and it's like, usually, my few memories I have of Lou Brock is either seeing him in All-Star games, or maybe like a random Topps baseball card that I would pick up or something like that. And usually, and sometimes on the NBC Game of the Week, because usually Orioles, they would be playing away and they would be blacked out, they would usually show the Phillies games a lot of times. And sometimes I would see him and other National League teams and great players from those teams in those games. And I think I did see him a few times in there as well. So, but anyway, once again, condolences to Mr. Brock's family and his fans in St. Louis and beyond as well. So there is other history made this past week. One, the 25th anniversary of an event, and the other, history of a player's first appearance. Both happening this past Sunday in Baltimore. First, we'll go to the past achievement. It was on that date that Cal Ripken had broken Lou Gehrig's consecutive game streak. It was the 25th anniversary of that. It seems like I remember that as yesterday. I'm sure you do too, Eric. I don't know. Like a lot of people ask with commemorative events, whether it be sports or otherwise. You remember where you were when that game happened, 21-31?
I do remember pretty much watching it at home. It's so amazing how fast time is gone, and it's making me feel 25 years older, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Just to see the signage come over the warehouse with the flipping of the 21-31 and the passing of the torch onto Ripken itself, it was, every game they played was just such a sight, and as he got closer to the games played record, that was pretty much, other than the World Series of '83, that was pretty much the only reason to go to a game back in those days, just to see an icon like Cal Ripken take the field every day.
Oh, pretty much. Yeah, I actually have a story about that. I watched that game on TV as well, and the night before. But here's the thing. At that time, I was working in construction down in Washington, D.C., and they actually had a train station right at Camden Yards. They had a specific commuter train line. They actually called it the Camden Line. That was the northernmost point, was the Camden Yards, and then went all the way down to Union Station, Washington, D.C., with a lot of stops in between. But anyway, I used to take a train to Washington 3 blocks from Union Station, and then I would come back, and sometimes it would just be commuters going home, but there would also be fans going to Orioles games. The day that he tied the record at 21:30, they stopped the train in the middle of the line, mainly because President Bill Clinton wanted to go to that game, and Secret Service made our train stop in the middle of nowhere and let his train bypass us so he can go and watch the game for like 3 innings. And and I wound up getting home an hour later. I wound up getting home just in time to watch the game. And of course the game was sold out. I couldn't go into the stadium itself. But my only other memory of that day, the warehouse, as you probably know, is also where a lot of the team's offices are. And on the bottom floor of the warehouse was a lobby, and they had an ice sculpture. I think they had a couple of them. They had one, it was like the numbers on the banners that you mentioned, and they had another one, it looked like it was like an ice statue of Cal Ripken. So I guess they, commemorated those, for that as well as they should. So, and, well, it's also interesting. I read on a story about that. I think on the 21-31 game, they had Cal's son, who was 2 years old at the time, do a quote-unquote first pitch. Well, Sunday, when they commemorated it, Cal actually threw the first pitch to his son, who's now 27 years old. And I mean, that was kind of a cool story for that in itself. I mean, there's so many stories within stories with that, but I mean, that was a great feat in baseball history. And as you probably remember too, Eric, that streak was one of the things that actually brought some fans back to baseball, because they had a lengthy strike prior to that, and it had lost a lot of fans. But you had that streak, and then shortly after you had the home run battle between McGuire and Sosa, and a lot of people credit those two things of bringing fans back into the ballpark around that time. So, I don't know. So what are your takes on those?
I actually liked it. I mean, no matter what they say about bringing fans back, okay, I was one who never left.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had, like, steroid era and the juice ball era, whatever excuse you wanted to make, that home run chase, whether natural strength or artificially helped out by either steroids or the baseballs or whatever combination of science or whatever, it was just fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's always fun to watch either a major pitching duel or home runs getting belted out of the park, especially if those numbers that were taking place back in 86 or whatever the heck the home run chase was.
Oh, yeah.
And it was never that the two were separated by a large margin. It was always one would hit one, and then one would equal would equal the other. None ever got out to that much of a stretch where they were that much out in front. It was always close competition, kind of like a Mantle and Maris kind of thing.
That was interesting. And one thing I thought was interesting about it also was they're traditionally division rivals. I mean, that would be like, I don't know, like Ortiz and Judge going at it for a home run title or something. And I don't know if I could see Yankees and Red Sox fans kind of like cheering in Kumbaya and enjoying the moment. I mean, yeah, they would be cheering, but I mean, I don't know. It was kind of weird that for a while it seemed like the fan bases sort of coexisted just so they can watch some history. I mean, it could happen. I don't know. What do you think of that? It's just...
And if I remember correctly, both teams weren't exactly up there as far as, like, standings-wise.
Right.
So when you needed something to grasp onto in order to keep interest in the sport, you didn't care about the standings at that point. All you cared about was the home run chase.
True. And that was the same as you mentioned earlier with Cal Ripken, because I think the year after that, I think the Orioles actually went to the playoffs, but prior to that, yeah, they were out of the standings, and that was really the only thing going on. And it got to the point where, and I have no proof of this, but I have a feeling on the 21-30 and 21-31 games, the Angels pitchers kind of gave Cal, basically, did him a favor and just basically threw him, easy pitches for him to crush just so, he can get the fans to cheer and, so he can, just I don't know, a nice thing to do for Cal, I guess. That's what it seemed like to me when I watched those games. I was like, oh yeah, who didn't see that coming? Yeah, but...
Well, I mean, there's been many controversies throughout that streak. The one game that was more of a famous type thing where the game actually got postponed due to a blackout.
Mm.
If you remember that one.
Yeah.
And there was basically rumors going around where Ripken wasn't quite available that night.
Mm.
So he more or less arranged for the power to go out.
Okay.
And there was some history behind that as well, which I won't go into because it involves something of a rather racy nature. But
I think I know where you're going. Does it have something to do with Mr. Kevin Costner by chance?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to get it.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything, but as long as you brought it up.
Right, yeah.
That was the big rumor at the time.
Oh, man. Well, don't think meat, just pitch, I guess. Ooh. But anyway, we'll get away from that, but congratulations to Cal Ripken on accomplishing that, and thankfully we're not mentioning him for the same reasons that we are for Mr. Seaver and Mr. Brock, so
right.
Congratulations on that. Also on that same day, a story that you had shared, I think, in one of our Facebook groups, Eric. I knew this was his first appearance for the Orioles. I did not know that this gentleman had actually come from Team Israel from the World Baseball Classic. But sure enough, you shared a story actually from the Israel national team's Facebook page. So we will get to that shortly. It said baseball history. This was dated as of yesterday. So I'll paraphrase it for today. Baseball history was made when Dean Kremer, the son of Israeli parents and a member of the Israeli national team from the age of 16, pitched for the Baltimore Orioles against the New York Yankees. He became the first Israeli player who is not a naturalized citizen to play in the major leagues. And surprisingly, he played pretty well, which sometimes happens to a pitcher playing in the majors for the first time where, he's not scouted on or whatever. But that game, he pitched for 6 innings, gave up 1 hit, 1 earned run, and 7 strikeouts, which is definitely surprising. So, good debut for Mr. Kremer. I'm sure you watched that game since it was against, unfortunately, your squad. But
yeah, well, The Yankees have always had a history of not doing well against pitchers that they haven't seen before. Mr. Kremer was no exception. And I gotta tell you, I don't remember seeing him with the Orioles in their minor league system. I do remember him pitching in the WBC qualifier in Brooklyn back in 2016. He was actually a Dodger pick in the 2016 draft at the University of UNLV way back when. But I gotta tell you, for a kid that was basically coming out of obscurity, I was pretty impressed. Whether he's scouted the guy, seen the guy, or whatever.
He made it. He might have come in the trade. I'm trying to think who they were. I don't know if it was a three-way trade. If somehow it was, I know Machado eventually went to the Padres, but I'm trying to think if there was like a three-way trade where the Dodgers were involved. So I remember them having a trade maybe like 2 or 3 years ago with the Dodgers and getting a bunch of players. Maybe he was one of their prospects back then. I don't know. Maybe the reason he made an appearance this year is because of 2020 and really there's no farm system. But other than just the alternate team playing in Bowie, I guess we're playing a lot of inter-squad games until the Orioles feel like they can use them. But yeah, it was interesting to see, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here. So. But, I don't know, that was interesting to see, so good for Mr. Kremer. We'll see how he and his Orioles do, and the rest of this year. I mean, this is just a crazy year. You can't tell what's going on. I mean, you see a team rolling, and then all of a sudden you have several teams either on the DL or the Corona-related DL or something else happening. It's just a strange year.
And you're absolutely right to come in the Machado trade.
Okay. Yeah, I thought there was maybe a three-way trade with some teams or something. But okay. You know what? That's right. Manny went to the Dodgers that time, and then he was traded to San Diego from the Dodgers. Okay, that's what that was. I was thinking, okay, how did that work? He's in San Diego on that, but okay, I remember now. Okay, all right, very good. Cool deal. All right, well, as we do every week, we will now proceed to the standings of Major League Baseball, and this is as of Monday, Labor Day. Let's see, as far as the standings go, and of course, fans don't care about week-old scores from the game, so they care more about how the teams look. All right, in the American League East, we'll start off. Tampa Bay is at 28-13, and I don't know, they've been a surprise lately. I don't know. It seems like they've been playing well against everybody. They've been beating the Yankees, been beating the Orioles. They've been, they're taking on all comers. I think they had a good weekend against the Corona Fish as well. But anyway, they're 28-13. Toronto is 22-18. New York Yankees are 21-19. Baltimore Orioles 19-21, and the Boston Red Sox at 14-28. AL Central, we have the Chicago White Sox at 26-15. Cleveland Indians at 25-15. Minnesota Twins at 26-17. Detroit Tigers at 18-21, and the Kansas City Royals at 14-27. That looks like that's a tough division so far. Let's see. We'll go to the AL West. We have the Oakland A's at 23-14. Houston Astros at 21-19. And the Seattle Mariners 19-22. Los Angeles Angels at 17-25. Texas Rangers at 13-27. And we'll proceed to the National League. We'll start in the East there. Atlanta at 24-17. Philadelphia Phillies 20-17. The Miami Corona Fish at 18-18. The New York Mets at 19-23. And the Washington Nationals at 14-25. Gosh, going from first to worst in that division so far. NL Central, we have the Cubs at 24-18. St. Louis Cardinals at 17-16. Milwaukee Brewers at 18-21. The Cincinnati Reds at 18-23. The Pittsburgh Pirates at 13-26. Then finally in the NL West we have the Los Angeles Dodgers at 30-12. San Diego Padres at 25-17. Colorado Rockies at 20-20. San Francisco Giants at 20-21. And the Arizona Diamondbacks at 15-26. And those are our standings for Major League Baseball. All right. Eric, do you have any comments about that, or?
Well, I can tell you right now, I'm actually sitting here watching the Yankees against the Buffalo Blue Jays. Split by 2. 100 runs, gave up 2 early homers. Back-to-backers to Boyd and Hicks.
Oh, wow.
Toronto has since tied it up. So, be a good battle.
Yeah, it sounds like a good ball game. Daniel Kim's probably not too happy about the 2 runs given up, though. I mean, he's been kind of like a cheerleader for them since he came to Toronto, but even though I know he's normally a Mets guy, but so sounds like a good game in Buffalo so far.
I actually now noticed that Don Bichette Sr. is in Toronto's dugout, even though his son is on the injured list.
Oh, wow.
So they might have made him an honorary coach.
Oh, we'll see. All right. Well, we'll continue to follow the action of that game as well. All right. Okay, folks, we're going to take a quick break. And when we do, we're going to take our world tour over to Korea to our friends in the KBO. You're listening to Pro Baseball World Tour on the RGC Multimedia YouTube channel. We'll be right back. Alright folks, welcome back to Pro Baseball World Tour. Rick Crabb, Eric Marin back. And as always, we take our world tour from North America to South Korea. Talk about our friends in the KBO. I haven't seen much news. There was one story I was looking for where there was COVID concerns among a player from the Hanwha Eagles. And it seemed like that player was a recent call-up from their Future Leagues team. I was kind of surprised, Eric, though. I thought their policy was as soon as they found one positive test, they were going to shut down for 2 weeks. But they kind of like made a little loophole and it's like, oh, well, you kind of called it down to Future Leagues. We'll see how things go. And it seems like there hasn't been any interruption in play with that. I don't know. What's your take on that?
See, when COVID cases are being found in future leagues and or, the majors, the alternate site kind of thing, as long as there's no huge shuffling back and forth between the minors and majors, there's really no reason to suspend play in any way.
Right.
You just keep them out of the way of everybody else and do the business as usual kind of thing. Of course, you continue on with random testing to trace and do all the other stuff, but the season's got to go on. You can't go this far into the season and start shutting down games like that.
Right. And as we've mentioned on other episodes, Daniel Kim was saying that the league was trying to have contingency plans if for some reason they had to stop games, whether it was for that or for weather issues, which they seem to have every once in a while, with torrential rains and that sort of thing. But, yeah, so fortunately they have been rolling on a little bit. One team in particular that's been rolling on in the KBO seems like it's the LG Twins. This is from a story from the Yonhap News Agency in Korea. And it says, the hottest team in South Korean baseball will take dead aim at first place this week with a key 2-game series against another title contender coming up on Thursday. This article was dated the 7th. The LG Twins are riding a 7-game winning streak into their makeup game on Monday against the Lotte Giants. It's the longest current winning streak in the KBO, ahead of the 6-game run by the KT Wiz. That team's been red hot, as we talked about many times, Eric. Back to the article. The Twins have taken sole possession of second place, just one game behind the NC Dinos and a half game up on the Kiwoom Heroes. The Heroes, who've lost 3 straight, and the Twins will collide for 2 games starting Thursday at Jamsil Baseball Stadium in Seoul. Before hosting the Heroes, the Twins will also have to contend with the Kia Tigers for 2 games. The Tigers won 2 straight games over the weekend, but remain 2.5 games back behind the Wiz and the Doosan Bears for the final playoff spot. The Wiz and the Bears will square off in Seoul for 2 games on Tuesday and Wednesday. The Dinos, clinging to the slim lead at the top, will enjoy a 6-game homestand. 2 games each against the fading Lotte Giants, the Wiz, and then the Tigers. And that concludes our story about the LG Twins. Now let's proceed to the standings for the KBO. And funny thing about these standings, Eric, as we go through, mainly because the Dinos have played less games than some of the teams in the league, we'll go through it. They are in first place with 58 wins, 37 losses, and 3 ties. Kiwoom has played 106 games. They have 62 wins, 44 losses, and no ties. And the LG Twins are at 58, 42, and 3 ties, in third place. And then trailing behind them, we have the Doosan Bears at 56, 43, and 3. We have the KT Wiz at 55, 44, and 1. Then we have the Kia Tigers at 54, 46, and 0. The Lotte Giants at 49, 48, and 1. Samsung Lions at 46, 53, and 1. The SK Wyverns at 32, 70, and 1. And the Hanwha Eagles bringing up the rear at 28, 71, and 1. It's interesting, the way this works with the different amount of games these teams have played. The Twins have the same amount of wins as the Dinos, yet they're in third place. The Kiwoom Heroes have 62 wins, but they're in second place. So, I don't know, it's kind of weird how that works out with it. I think when you and I were talking the other day, it was kind of like the Dinos had a certain amount of wins, and then Kiwoom had more, and then LC had more, but then, another day of KBO baseball progress since we last spoke, and that's just how the way things are working. Do you have any other observations about the league other than just the crazy rugby scrum for the playoffs as usual with these teams, or?
The makeup games, I'll say this week after week, the makeup games are going to be the difference in who gets even into the top 5, because at this point, the Dinos, who were basically running roughshods over the entire league for the majority of the year, everything is getting so tight and magnet right now that these makeup games from all the past rainouts, if they're able to do them, they are utmost importance for them keeping that top spot and getting the bite.
Oh, definitely. And also, you have rain, and then, of course, there's always a concern with COVID, although that has not been an issue, fortunately, for the KBO yet. And it seems like, too, the other teams are coming to the pack. It seems like Kiwoom's coming on strong with their pitching. The Twins are coming on strong with their bats. And, I don't know, and then you have Doosan and KT Wiz still breathing down their necks, too. So, it's still close. But as you said, the Dinos, they're clinging, down to their fingernails to that top spot there. So, but one thing I had heard on the KBO broadcast, I forget the woman's name. She's the color commentator, the softball player. She was saying something that was kind of interesting. She was asking the play-by-play guy if you would prefer to have that top spot and wait for all the other teams to play, or would you rather be in second or third and just keep the momentum going and keep playing, into the postseason? She seems to be of the opinion of not wanting to wait and having that bye being a little rusty as a result. But I don't know. You kind of see that more with other sports, I guess, especially with college football and the bowl games where teams have several weeks rest or that kind of thing, or with the NFL playoffs. I don't know. What's your opinion of that, Eric?
It can come back to bite you, but for the most part, you only you maybe need 2-3 days of rest to get any sort of nagging injuries together. Anything longer than that can cause a little bit of a lull. Mm-hmm. So you gotta, keep your little inter-squad games or practices ramped up a little bit. It can come back to bite you, but for the most part, rest is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree, and especially in this league. And depending on the situation, I mean, we talk so much about the KBO bullpens, and I don't know, any rest where you can rest their arms because they're going to need them, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, I think that's a good thing as well. I mean, you can hopefully, if they're having bad innings because of nagging injuries or just fatigue, they can rest up and maybe that can refresh them a little bit. So, I don't know. I personally, I would prefer to automatically go to the World Series, but, that's just me. But,
take today, for example. You had the Team SK, how do I put this mildly, but it was basically a tennis match where it wound up being 16-15. And Team wound up getting 5 runs in the top of the 8th after a load of scoring just to make that comeback. It's a crazy time of year.
Yeah, it seems almost like
any rest that you can get is good, but not too much.
Not too much. Yeah, but that's crazy, though. Because, usually, as you know, Eric, what happens is not just the guy keep throwing home runs or whatever. Sometimes the pitcher will make actually decent pitches to get ground outs or double plays or whatever, and the defense behind them will just poop the bed. It's ridiculous, but I don't know. But I agree. I would take the rest any day, and plus it's kind of like bragging rights too, I guess. Down there, I would imagine so. Anyhow, so.
Arizona wants to tend to open floodgates.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, as we do every week, we're going to defer to Eric's knowledge of the CPBL from our friends in Taiwan. You're listening to Pro Baseball World Tour here on RTC Multimedia YouTube channel. We'll be right back. Alright, folks, welcome back to Pro Baseball World Tour. Rick Crabb, Eric Marin back. And as promised, we are moving our World Tour over to Taiwan, and Eric is going to expand about this week in the CPBL. Eric, what happened this week?
You had a complete game, 3-game shutout, 3-hit shutout rather, by a former major leaguer in Asriel Rogers for the Brother Elements. Rogers, formerly of the Toronto/Buffalo Blue Jays and the New York Yankees, did do a 3-hitter over Fubon. And speaking of the Lions, even though Rakuten swept them, it took 2 walk-off victories, one of which in extra innings, and then the other one on Sunday was a complete rout. So even though it was a sweep, there was a little bit of drama in everything.
Okay.
And even today, as the week started, you had a walk-off win from the Lions over Fubon, where something actually happened for Fubon that if I've seen it before, it's been a long time coming since I have, where former Pirates minor league catcher prospect Jin DeJong was actually called upon to pinch hit for what would have been the tying run, He then got intentionally walked, and then got pinch ran for. So his at-bat lasted for a total of about 3.5 seconds, and he was right back on the bench.
Jeez, it was.
That's never a dull moment.
Yeah, really. I mean, okay, it's one thing. I mean, it sounds like sound strategy to walk him, I suppose, but that is kind of strange that the manager would have pinch run him right after that. But then again, you said he's a catcher, so I mean, catchers usually aren't the fastest guys on the team. I mean, just due to the nature of their job. I mean, their knees are, kind of go a little quicker than some positions on the ball club. But yeah, that is kind of strange.
He's gotten beaten up last bunch of games behind the plate, as well as some of his at-bats, because he does hit so well. That he has gotten beaten up a little bit, but he's still hitting in the 400 range since he's joined the team from the draft.
Oh, okay, very nice, very nice. All right. Well, let's proceed to the standings of the CPBL. We're in the second stage, and we have the Uni Lions. They are edging out first place at 16-15-1. Rakuten is right behind them at 16-15-0. Fubon is behind them at 15-15-0, and the Brother Elephants of China Trust are at 14-16-1. So, once again, everything is still very tight in the CPBL, especially in the second stage. So, I'll say one thing, Eric. That's one thing I really like about this portion of the program. You bring a lot of. It seems like you always bring something different. Not only unique to that league, but I mean just different things. I mean, it's like if they're not having what you mentioned with this the pitch running situation. They have issues with the weather. They have the bird out. I never heard of that. I mean, other than what you and I joked about with Dave Winfield, but I mean that was totally different. I mean, it sounded like Alfred Hitchcock, night at the ballpark. That game you described a few weeks ago, but it seems like a lot of fun. I can see why this is your league. This is probably your favorite league or league of choice because I mean you just see a lot of different things. I mean that's one of the reasons why, and I'm sure you do as well, like to go to minor league games because you see a lot of things different that you don't see in your normal major league game there too. So, I mean, it's baseball, but there's interesting twists and nuances to it. So and I applaud you for keeping up with this on this because I feel like every week I am learning baseball in the CPBL, and I'm hoping our listeners are as well. But even if they are diehard CPBL fans as you, I mean, I still think you bring interesting notes to the games as well in your analysis. So I appreciate you for that.
All right, thank you. I just thought it was kind of funny that the exact same thing happened with the bird situation several years prior on the same exact date. So it's not only the fact that there's a bird delay, but that it's happened more than once. Right. And coincidentally on the same day. That's a mind blower.
Sounds almost like a seasonal hazard with them. I mean, kind of like how California has, like, I don't know, mudslides and fires at certain times of year. I guess Taiwan has, like, I don't know, birds attacking ballparks. I don't know, but
yeah, it's not quite that seasonal. It's not quite the Jabba Chamberlain Bidgie scandal from a couple of years ago in Cleveland, if you remember that one.
Oh, gosh.
But, certain things happen that are just too fun to pass up.
Yeah, no doubt. And the reason that those stories are fun, because, correct me if I'm wrong, I think no one was hurt or anything, not even any of the birds, I would imagine, though, in that story, right? It just happened to be that birds came on the field, umpires like, okay, stop for a little bit. Yeah.
There were birds on the field. There were no injuries. It was a distraction a little bit. But the fans got a big kick out of it.
Oh, okay. Well, and that's, that always happens.
That's what CPBL is all about. It's all about the fans and the atmosphere and the whole thing.
Definitely. I mean, it sounds like they definitely have a good time, and I don't know. My road trip bucket list is growing as far as baseball. I mean, between the spring training, what we were talking about earlier in the episode, and this, and then Japan and Korea, and I don't know. Probably if we start covering Australia, I'm going to want to go down there to see some games too. So I don't know. It seems like a lot of fun baseball around the world. So you only live once, I guess. So
I have been told if you ever do go to Australia, and this was years ago, so I don't know if the population has changed at all, but I do remember a former ball player, friend of mine, who was a Yankee and Philly prospect. He actually married an Australian chick, having played winter ball in Australia, and he called me. He's like, dude, you've got to go there. The ratio of women to men are like 4-1. Not for nothing, but I like those odds.
I do too. I'm sure a lot of our other listeners would as well. But man, definitely. Okay, okay. Definitely, the Incas hasn't tried yet. It's on the bucket list for sure.
Oh yeah, there was another guy who is actually now an Astros minor league coach within their system. And years ago, I had met him at a New Jersey Jackals game because he was still playing independent ball. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the pictures that were online had a really, really hot chick with him. Oh. And I had assumed that it was one of the Australian cheerleaders because all of the teams in that league do have cheerleaders similar to what they have in the Asian League. So I had an Asian Series program from, I think, 2011 or 13 that I had him sign, and then I had him sign a couple of photos, and I said, all the photos that are in there, you're with a really, really hot chick. Is she a cheerleader, and do you ever still see her? He goes, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I married her. And I go, you are one lucky son of a bitch.
Oh, no kidding. No kidding. And I guess rules for their cheerleaders are different, because I know, like, with the NFL, they don't allow cheerleaders to fraternize with players, which kind of makes sense if they're going to be, like, free agents. I mean, like, I don't know if you'd want, like, a Jets cheerleader to marry a guy who's on the Jets and then he moves on to play the Patriots. I guess it's kind of like, conflict of interest there. So, I don't know, but...
That's happened before, though. I remember a story, what was it, a couple of years ago, where a guy caught his first NFL pass for a touchdown, and the cheerleader for the opposing team was somebody that he was actually dating. And she got a kick out of it. Everybody else was booing her. Stories all of it.
Oh, yeah. And I think there was also a case, too, where there was, I forget the Redskin player, but there was a cheerleader from the Redskin cheerleaders, I think. And I think it was Chris Cooley, I think. He was one of his wife used to be a cheerleader for them. I think that was the player. But, yeah, I guess it happens. Well, I'm glad they don't have such restrictions in Australia, and good for them for not having them, quite frankly.
And I actually knew a Cowboys cheerleader at one time who, many years ago, was dating a member of at that time, the Binghamton Nets.
Oh, wow.
We still keep in touch over Facebook, but that's a whole story of something else.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we can get her on the show one day. I'm just kidding, but...
Yeah, right, I'd love to.
All right, well, okay, going back to our friends in the CPBL, Eric, do you have any other commentary going on this week, or anything coming up that we should look forward to, like any pitching matchups, anything like that, or...
It's funny, because you really don't know pitching matchups until, like, day of. Even when you go onto the CPBL website, you don't really know what's going on. And the only way that I know is as soon as the TV pops on and I plug in my CPBL app through my subscription, that's how I know it's pitching.
Okay. And that's just how the way things are working. Do you have any other observations about the league other than just the crazy rugby scrum for the playoffs as usual with these teams, or?
The makeup games, I'll say this week after week.
All right, well.
So I look forward to 2 games tomorrow. You get the Guardians against the Lions again, and the infamous battle of the Brother Elephants versus the Monkeys, this time in the Monkeys' home ballpark in Cayenne. So it should be a good one.
Okay. All right, folks, let's take another quick break. Actually, it'll be our final break in the program. When we come back, we will move our world tour over to... All right, folks, welcome back to Pro Baseball World Tour here on RGC Multimedia. We're Crab with Eric Marenbach, and as promised, we move our world tour over to Japan and the NPB. Eric, off the air, you and I were talking about a story where the various professional sports leagues, not just baseball, but it looks like there's soccer leagues as well, were trying to work with the government and to try to allow more spectators for their events. And you pointed out you think it may have something to do with the Summer Olympics that were postponed until next summer. And what was after reading that article, what was your take on that per se, as far as?
Well, I hate to bring up the U.S., as far as the it is what it is attitude, but other countries as well, even though they're doing better than us, they're forging ahead with making plans of major events next year. I mean, the WBC for 2021, which is now pushed off to 2023, they postponed everything way ahead of schedule. I have a feeling that they should have done similar to what Japan is doing now, with forging ahead and just bringing the economy, or at least attempting to bring the economy back to life over there, by, at least for now, doing 50% capacity at events. And I'm sure as conditions improve, that'll just keep on going up. But at least they're forging ahead as far as planning the events, making sure that everything's safe, and improving conditions as they go along.
Right.
Because you're better off going forward rather than treading back.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, too. I think the WBC might be a little different in the sense that a lot of the games that were scheduled, and even some like the qualifiers, I think some of them were in the United States and in like the Caribbean, like Puerto Rico and the other Caribbean nations, that kind of thing. I have a feeling if it would have been just strictly an Asian or a European tournament, it might have moved it. It may have still postponed things, but I think it would have been a lot sooner, though. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Like I said, when the qualifier got squashed, that was supposed to be in Tucson in March of this past year.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of like the domino about to tumble. But when they canceled the entire thing, I mean, you could have gone with just the 16 teams and, squashed the qualifier. And I think it would have been really good business as usual. But they decided to forge ahead and just cancel the whole thing and postpone it for 2 years. That was a major blow to the Japan economy.
Right. And And a lot of it is with international travel restrictions, because even with the national teams, like, say with Japan, I mean, you have several star players playing in major leagues, so if they have travel restrictions to and from the United States, it might affect them. Same with teams from, players from who play for Mexico. A lot of major league players are from the Dominican Republic. I mean, you and I were talking about earlier Team Israel with Mr. Kremer from the Orioles. I mean, that's the only problem with baseball. It's kind of like the World Baseball Classics, like the World Cup, where you have players from the national teams. They still have to travel. Chances are they usually just travel to the UK or other European countries to play their professional soccer, but they have to go back home to other countries, which could be in other parts of the world and other economic and, in this case, pandemic-related issues too. So, I mean, I don't know. It sounds like a logistical nightmare. So, I don't know. They probably just wanted to push back a couple years just to avoid the headache, I would think. I don't know.
You're definitely good as well on that one.
Yeah. We definitely want to wish the people of Japan, hopefully they get to go to some more games, and, hopefully they will be able to ease some restrictions, because we haven't heard any real issues from them. I mean, we commented about that last week. It's kind of like a blessing and a curse with the NPB. That league, we can actually just talk about baseball, the 90 feet to each base, the games itself. We're not talking about people going to casinos and catching COVID or any other negativity, or we just talk about strictly about the Japanese baseball, which is really how it should be, but in a lot of cases, but not always is. And
we've actually had a good day today in the NPB. As a matter of fact, we just went down another no-hitter. It was broken up in the top half of the eighth by the Orange Buffaloes. Seibu pitcher Kona Takahashi had a one-hitter, only walking one, striking out 7. And the no-hitter was broken up in the 8th inning.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Let's see if I can find who actually broke it up. And no, it was not Adam Jones.
I was going to ask that.
It was Masahiro Tashino, who, by coincidence, was a pinch hitter. So, I was actually watching the Yokohama Bay Stars game, which coincidentally finished in a 7-7 tie.
Oh, no kidding.
After their extra innings. So, it isn't one thing, it's another. You go from one side of the spectrum to the other.
Right. Yeah, it's a great thing about Asian and especially Japanese baseball, for sure. Okay, well, let's proceed to the standings of the NPB. We'll start off with the Central Division. We have the Yomiuri Giants holding up at 41-22-3. The Yokohama Bay Stars at 33-31-5. The Hanshin Tigers at 32-31-4. The Chunichi Dragons at 31-35-4. The Hiroshima Carp at 26-34-7. And the Yakut Swallows at 26-36-5. Going on to the Pacific Division, we have the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks at 39-27-3. The Chiba Lotte Marines at 39-28-2. The Rakuten Golden Eagles at 34-32-3. The Nippon Ham Fighters at 32-34-3. The Saibu Lions at 31-34-1. And Adam Jones and the no-hitter breaking Oryx Buffaloes at 22-42-4. And those are our standings for NPB, our friends in Japan. So this has been a crazy week and a crazy weekend, and for our listeners in the United States, we hope you had a happy and safe Labor Day weekend, and hope your weekend coming up and many after that be happy and safe as well, and hopefully listening to this program helped make it so. So, thank you for joining us. Eric, do you have any comments about any of the leagues or anything else in the world of baseball you'd like to mention before we wrap things up?
I'm pretty much good to go. I'm still looking into an article that somebody told me about some sort of a league that's forming in Vietnam.
Ooh, I think I saw something about that too.
Now again, it could be something as amateurish as the Czech leagues or as like Pakistan or something like that, where these guys, they don't even have equipment and or they're getting equipment, from wild sources and first learning the game. But it's just another country that's learning the great game of baseball, and hopefully it'll flourish. I mean, I know it's probably going to take them a long time to either find fields, get players to play, and hone their skills. But you just never know. I mean, it could wind up being an Israel-type situation in a few years where the country will come out of nowhere and be an international phenom.
Okay. I think might have seen an art. If it wasn't that article, I might have seen another article about it, because I even saw, I think, in the Baseball Pacifica Facebook group, they had a poster for it. I think it was something called like the Ho Chi Minh Trail League or something like that, or just a Ho Chi Minh League.
That was the one that I saw, yeah.
Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, I think, much like the Australian League, they have teams from other countries, and I think there was a Korean team in that league, if I read that correctly. So,
like I said, neither of us delved into the article. We just happened to glance by it and, said, ooh, another country.
Right, there you go. Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, it had like this glossy poster. It looked professional. It could have just been some talented Vietnamese person with Photoshop making it look, more major league or professional than it may actually be. I don't know, but I mean, that's kind of a welcome sight, especially since some of the leagues we spoke about, like that Russian Rustar Arena League in Moscow, where they have like the weird camera angles and no camera angles in the outfield, that kind of thing. I mean, they need to work on that. But I mean, there are other leagues though. I mean, that they have some fun stuff, like the Asian leagues. I mean, great example of that. So, all right. Okay, folks, well, I think we are going to wrap things up. We'll bring out the NC Dinos dancers to take us out to Baby Shark. Thank you for joining us. This is Pro Baseball World Tour here on the RTC Multimedia YouTube channel. We'll talk to you next week.